Hey, after my brother's girlfriend set visiting rules for the apartment I let them use rent-free? I was enjoying my day off, lying on the couch, scrolling through Netflix without deciding on anything. When the cell phone rang, Mom appeared on the screen. I stared at the name for a second. I took a deep breath and answered, "Hello? Hi Nicole, how are you?" My mom had that sweet little voice, kind of sing-songy, the one she uses when she wants to ask for something. "Good, just resting here." "What happened?" "Well, I need to ask you a favor, sweetie." And there it was, here it came. Look, your brother already moved out of the apartment he was in. His lease ended and right now he is a little tight on money, you know. I let the air out through my nose. Brandon was 26, 4 years younger than me, and for as long as I could remember, he went from one thing to another. I was already in my 30s and at this point my patience wore out faster. Brandon changed jobs like someone changing shirts, and when it was not the job it was the girlfriend. There was always a reason, always a things just did not work out. "Mom, where are you going with this?" I asked even though I already knew. "Well, you have that apartment that was left empty after your divorce from Anthony." I felt how her pitch went up, as if that made the idea sound lighter. "Brandon needs a place to stay while he gets settled. Just for a little bit until he gets on his feet." I closed my eyes. That apartment was not a whim, it was my cushion. When I got divorced 3 years ago, I kept that apartment as part of the settlement. 2 years later, I bought another one in a better area around Lakeview and took on a heavy mortgage. My plan was to rent the one in the western suburbs so the rent would help me with the monthly payments. It was my way of not strangling myself every month. "Mom, I was planning to rent it out. I need that rent for the mortgage." "I know, sweetheart, but we are talking about family." Her voice got softer. "Brandon really needs it. You are doing well in your marketing job and he is struggling right now. It is temporary." I already knew what temporary meant in Brandon's dictionary. I also knew what would happen if I said no. My mom would bring it up at every family dinner, at every birthday, at everything, with phrases like, "Your poor brother," and "There are people who forget about their own." I stayed quiet for a while, staring at the ceiling. "Okay, he can stay. But seriously, it is temporary, right? Truly temporary." "Oh, thank you, my love." My mom changed her tone as if a weight had just been lifted off her shoulders. "Brandon is going to be very grateful. I will tell him right now." Before I could give her any conditions, she hung up. I let the cell phone drop onto the couch and stared at the blank screen. "How nice," I muttered to myself. Goodbye rent. 1 week later, I arranged to meet Brandon at the western suburbs apartment. He arrived with few things, a medium suitcase, 2 bags, and a look like he was coming to spend the weekend, not to start from scratch. He was relaxed, as if nothing weighed him down. "What's up, sister? You really saved me," he said and gave me a quick hug. He smelled like cigarettes. "Yeah. Well, I took out the keys. Like I told Mom, this is temporary." Yeah, of course," he replied, looking around as if measuring the space. The apartment was clean and almost empty. I left some basic furniture, just enough so it would not look abandoned. "I need to rent it out at some point," I insisted. "Obviously, you will not even feel I am here." He smiled. "Just let me set up my next job. I already have some options there." I had already heard that 1,000 times. Before I lost my nerve, I stood firm. "I need you to follow some rules while you are here." Brandon turned with a small grimace, as if annoyed, but he swallowed it quickly. "All right, shoot." 1. You do not move anyone in to live here without telling me, and without my permission. 2. You clean up after yourself, you keep this clean. I do not want it getting ruined. 3. No loud parties. The neighbors know me and I do not want complaints. 4. No pets without asking me. Brandon raised his hands as if swearing an oath. Reasonable rules. Promise you, I am going to be the perfect tenant. You will not even know I exist. The first few weeks I was on top of things. I would drive by after work without notice. I would knock a couple of times and since nobody opened I would go in with my key. And to my surprise, Brandon was complying. There was order, no weird things were seen, and he even cooked for me a couple of times when I dropped in. "See," he told me one night, serving me a simple but well-made plate of spaghetti. "I told you I matured." "I am impressed," I admitted while eating. Maybe my mom was right for once. That Saturday at the family dinner at my parents' house, the atmosphere was weird, as if suddenly I was the model daughter. My mom served roast chicken with mashed potatoes and warm rolls and did not stop smiling. It gives me so much joy to see you guys getting along well, she said. That is how it should be. Family supports each other. My dad nodded. Very serious. I am proud of you, Nicole. Brandon very cheerfully added, truth is, she has been super cool with me. That is how siblings are. I felt something I had not felt in years. Approval. Warm, almost addictive. Caught me off guard. Maybe this was not going to be so bad. Almost 3 months passed and I relaxed. Work got heavy. I started dating someone and stopped dropping by unannounced. I called Brandon every now and then. Everything good over there? I would ask. Yes, everything is good. The apartment is clean, the bills are up to date, 0 parties, he would answer, happy, as if he were the perfect student. I should have suspected something. On a Tuesday night, I suddenly remembered that I had left some important documents in the filing cabinet in the spare bedroom. I needed them for a meeting the next day. Could not wait. Before leaving, I called Brandon. He did not answer. I sent him a quick message. He did not reply either. I got in my car and headed over. When I arrived at the building, I could hear loud music from the hallway. I knocked. Nothing. I knocked again. I rang the doorbell. Nothing. This cannot be happening, I said through my teeth. I took out my key and opened the door. What I saw stopped me dead in my tracks. In my living room there was a girl I had never seen before. She was barefoot, wearing a long men's t-shirt, moving to the music as if she were alone in her house. When she saw me, she opened her eyes wide, first in shock and then in anger. What is wrong with you? She yelled over the music. Who are you? And why are you breaking into our apartment? I froze. Excuse me? Yes, What do you not understand? With the remote, she turned the music down abruptly, as if she had the right to scold me. Before I could say anything, Brandon came out of the bedroom in boxers, his hair messy. He went pale when he saw me. Nicole, I did not know you were coming, he babbled. Shows, I said. And finally my voice came out. Who is she? The girl crossed her arms. I should be asking who you are. I am Nicole and this apartment is mine. It is in my name. I turned to look at Brandon. Care to explain? Brandon took a step forward as if wanting to cover up the disaster. She is Kayla, he said quickly. My girlfriend. It is just that she needed a place to stay and you moved her in to live here without asking me, I finished for him. Kayla rolled her eyes. Oh, do not make things up. We are adults. Brandon does not need permission to decide who stays in his house. It is not his house, I replied without raising my voice, but firmly. It is mine. Nicole, please. Brandon approached with that pleading face he uses since he was a kid. I love her. Really. We are serious. I was going to tell you, but I knew you were going to get intense. I looked at both of them. Brandon with his pleading eyes and Kayla looking at me as if I were the intruder. How long has she been living here? I asked. Brandon swallowed hard. Like a month. A month. I felt the heat rise to my face. I took a deep breath. I counted to 10 in my head so I would not explode right there. Brandon, can we talk alone for a minute? I said. Kayla jumped in immediately. Whatever you have to say, you say it in front of me. I looked right at her. I want to talk to my brother alone. Here in my apartment. Brandon squeezed her arm, trying to calm her down. Give me a little bit, love. I will be right back. Kayla scoffed, turned around and went to the bedroom, slamming the door. What a charm, I muttered when she left. It is just that she got scared, Brandon said. And well, you just arrived like that, letting yourself in with a key. Brandon, I cut him off. We agreed on something. You had clear rules. Yes, he let out a sigh. But we have been together for 3 months and she got kicked out of where she was living. She had problems with the girl she shared the apartment with and it just happened like that. It was not out of bad intentions, really. She is nice when you treat her right. I rubbed my temples. My head started throbbing. A part of me wanted to tell them to grab their things and leave today. But I also knew the show that was going to follow. My parents would take his side and I would be the heartless sister who threw her brother and his girlfriend out on the street. Fine, I finally said, hating myself a little bit for saying it. She can stay. But the other rules still apply. Cleanliness. No parties, no pets, and respect. Agreed? Brandon's face lit up. He hugged me tight. as if I had handed him the world. You are the best. You will not regret it. I swear to you. I already regret it, I muttered quietly, but he did not even hear it. I went to get my documents from the spare room. When I returned to the entrance, Kayla came out of the bedroom. So yes, you are letting me stay, she said with a crooked smile. How generous. Kayla, enough, Brandon said weakly. No, seriously, she looked me up and down. Thanks, Nicole. But next time, knock before coming in with your key. It is really invasive to just barge in like that. I opened my mouth to remind her that I was not barging in, but I held back. It was not worth it. All right, I said dryly, and reached out to open the door. Kayla beat me to it. She opened it herself, and with that same fake smile, she pushed me aside with her body as if she were kicking me out. Have a good one, she said. And the door closed almost in my face. I stood in the hallway with my heart racing, thinking, did this seriously just happen? My brother's girlfriend just kicked me out of my own apartment. That Saturday I arrived at my parents' house still choking on my anger. We sat down to eat and I could not hold it in. I already met Brandon's girlfriend, I blurted out, poking at my food without an appetite. Isn't she just a charm? My mom was glowing. Brandon brought her last week. She is very sweet. That is when it clicked. They already knew her and had not even told me. I almost choked on my water. Sweet. She was rude to me. And wait, you guys had already met her? I told them how I found her in the apartment. How she spoke to me, how she shut the door on me. My mom waved her hand as if shooing the topic away. Oh, surely you caught her off guard. And well, you walking in unannounced with a key, that would freak anyone out. It is my apartment, I said, feeling like a broken record. And they broke the first rule. He moved someone in without telling me. Nicole, my mom sighed as if tired of me. You have to understand that Brandon is building a serious relationship. They want to make a home. In my apartment, I emphasized. Can't you be happy for your brother? My dad asked. Then he finished with a sentence that hurt more than it should have. After your divorce, you should understand how important it is to find someone. Stung. They knew perfectly well that Anthony cheated on me, and yet they were using it to teach me lessons, as if I had failed by not putting up with it. This has nothing to do with my divorce, I said, holding my voice steady. It has to do with Brandon not respecting what we agreed on. Family is more important than rules, my mom said bluntly. You have 2 apartments, your brother has none. You can be generous. I stared at my plate. I did not argue anymore. I changed the subject because I realized I was not going to win anything there. The following week, the bills arrived, the electric bill and the water bill. I almost dropped my phone when I saw the amounts. They were almost double the usual. I called Brandon as soon as I could. Hey, did you see the bills? They are super high. What is going on? He hesitated. Well, it is just that Kayla takes super long showers really long, and she says she needs the lights on to see well. So, well, she leaves everything on. I closed my eyes. I counted to 10 again. Brandon, I am paying for that. I know, sorry. I will talk to her right now. Yes, please, because I cannot go around paying like that. I cannot afford those kinds of increases. I promise I will fix it, sister. I wanted to believe him, but something in me was already uneasy. 3 weeks later, Mrs. Evelyn called me, an older lady who lived across the hall from the apartment. She had always been nice, one of those neighbors who greets you with a little smile and has been there for years. Miss Nicole, she said in her soft voice. Forgive me for bothering you, but there have been very loud parties in your apartment. Several nights. You can hear it until very late. A lot of people, a lot of music. My stomach dropped. Mrs. Evelyn, I am truly sorry. Thank you for letting me know. I am going to fix it. I hung up. I felt the anger rising like a wave. First they moved someone in without permission, then the bills, now parties. They had already broken all the rules. The next day, leaving work during rush hour, I went straight to the apartment. I endured over an hour of traffic from Lakeview to the western suburbs and arrived tense. I knocked on the door. Nothing. I knocked again. Nothing. I rang the doorbell. Nothing. I took out my key. I put it in. It did not turn. I stared at the lock, disbelieving. I tried again. Nothing. Are you telling me they changed the lock? I said in a low voice. I went down to my car with my hands shaking with anger and decided to wait. If they would not open for me, I was going to catch them going in or coming out. Almost 2 hours passed. It was already getting dark when I saw Brandon and Kayla walking toward the building entrance. I got out, followed them, and we went up in the elevator in silence. As soon as they reached the door, I spoke loudly, "Brandon." He turned around. His face dropped. "Nicole." Kayla looked at me with annoyance. "What are you doing here?" "I need you to explain to me why my key does not work anymore," I said bluntly. Brandon swallowed hard. "I can explain. Let's talk inside." "Yes," I said. "But right now." Kayla stepped aside reluctantly. I walked in. The apartment did not look like it used to. There were empty bottles in the kitchen, poorly rinsed glasses, and the living room furniture was moved around as if they had been putting together gatherings there. "Why did you change the lock?" I asked, pointing at the door. Brandon opened his mouth, but Kayla beat him to it. "Because I do not like that you have the ability to come in whenever you want," she said. "It is weird. Feels bad." I looked at her. "It is not weird. It is my property." I turned to Brandon. "You agreed to this." He looked down and barely nodded. I felt something break inside me, but instead of yelling, I calmed down as if I had already grown tired. "I have had enough," I said slowly. "Yesterday Mrs. Evelyn called me. She says you have been having parties with loud music. Until late." Kayla let out a giggle. "That lady is always being nosy." "The neighbors are my business," I answered her. "And so are the bills. They are double since you moved in." Brandon took a step toward me. "Nicole, can we talk about this later? When we are calmer?" "No," I said. "It is right now." I took a deep breath. "You have broken all the rules. You moved someone in without telling me. You do not keep the apartment in good condition, you throw parties, and now you change the lock on my apartment without asking me. That is just too much." Kayla rolled her eyes and went to a drawer. She took out a folded piece of paper and tossed it into my hand. "Here," she said, "so you stop making drama." "And what is this?" "Our rules." She looked at me as if she were doing me a favor. "If you want to come to your apartment, these are the conditions." I unfolded the paper. Upon reading the first line, I almost laughed, but it did not come out. The first rule said that I had to give them at least 3 days' notice before going. The second, that I could not go after 7 at night or before 10 in the morning. The third, that it was forbidden to talk about bills or money. Another said that I had to stay calm and not cause problems. And then, as if it were the most logical thing in the world, it demanded that I buy them new furniture because the ones there were old and ugly. I kept reading and every line was worse. There were things like I could not enter the master bedroom, that I had to knock and wait even if I brought a key, and that I should not give opinions on their lifestyle. I looked up. Kayla was smiling, satisfied. Brandon looked uncomfortable but was not saying anything. In that moment, something settled inside me, as if my body understood before my mind did. There was no more negotiation. It was over. I folded the paper slowly, left it on the table, and said with a calmness that surprised me, "You have 1 week to get out." Kayla's smile vanished. "What?" Brandon opened his eyes wide. "What do you mean 1 week?" Kayla raised her voice. "I am sure we have rights." "What rights?" I answered without raising my pitch. "There is no lease, there is no rent. You are not on any paper. This apartment is in my name and I am telling you clearly. In 1 week you leave. If not, I will handle it legally." Kayla turned red with anger. She turned toward a bookshelf and grabbed a beautiful ceramic vase that I had bought on our honeymoon. Before I could react, she threw it to the floor. The vase shattered into pieces. I froze for a second, but I did not give her the satisfaction of seeing me break down. "That piece cost me around $350, I said, fixing my eyes on her. "Are you going to pay me for it?" "Keep your things," she spat out and went for another ornament. A ceramic figure. "Kayla," I said firmly, "do not touch anything else. If you break anything again, I am calling the police. You have crossed the line. This is property damage." She froze with her hand in the air. Brandon said, "Love, enough." 1 week, I repeated. "It is not a negotiation." I turned around and walked out. As I closed the door, I heard Kayla yelling things out of control and Brandon trying to calm her down. I went down to the parking lot with a straight back. But when I got in the car, my hands were shaking. It was not fear, it was the release of finally having set a boundary. I had not even arrived home when my cell phone rang. "Mom, of course," I muttered. I already spoke to him, I answered. What is wrong with you, Nicole? My mom jumped right in. Brandon is crying. How could you think of kicking your brother and his girlfriend out? Are you going to leave them on the street? Mom, they changed the lock on my apartment without asking me. I am sure they had their reasons, she said, downplaying it. You always show up without warning. And then I heard my dad's voice, serious, heavy. Your mom and I are very disappointed in you. It burned and what I had been holding in came out. Disappointed in me, I said. Dad, and what have you done for me lately? I bought my house, I pay my mortgage. I lent my apartment to Brandon without charging him $1, and he is taking advantage. That does not count. Kayla seems very sweet, my mom blurted out. Brandon says you have been hostile from the beginning. I laughed, but it was a laugh of disbelief. Today Kayla broke a ceramic piece and tried to impose a list of rules for me to enter my own apartment. Does that seem normal to you? Are you exaggerating? My mom replied. Ever since Anthony left you, you have been bitter. We understand you, sweetheart, but do not take it out on your brother. I stayed silent for a second, listening to my own breathing. Whatever I said. And I hung up. I turned off the cell phone. I sat in the car staring at nothing. The anger and the sadness hit me in waves as if they were taking turns. What hurt the most was not Brandon, it was that my parents once again were not seeing me. The next day I called Jennifer, a lawyer friend. I need you to tell me if I am within my rights. My brother lives in my apartment. He moved his girlfriend in. They changed the lock. There is no lease. They do not pay rent. I gave them 1 week to leave. Jennifer listened to the whole thing and then spoke to me clearly, without beating around the bush. If the property is in your name and there is no lease agreement, yes, you can demand that they vacate, she told me. The ideal thing is to have it in writing, even if it is a formal message where you ask them to hand over the apartment on such date. And careful, do not do weird things while they are still there, but as soon as they leave, you change the locks and that is it. That is what I did. That same day I sent a formal message to Brandon with the date and everything, requesting the handover of the apartment and the keys in 1 week. I also scheduled a locksmith to go on the day the deadline expired, an hour after I arrived, just in case. The days dragged on. Brandon called me several times. I did not answer. He left me messages that went from one extreme to the other. First angry. You are being really unfair, Nicole. Come on. Then pleading. Please. We have nowhere to go. Do not do this. My parents also called. I did not answer them. I did not want another round of guilt. Finally, the week was up. I took the day off from work and went early to the apartment. I went with a tight stomach. I did not know if Brandon was going to open the door for me, or if I was going to run into a scene. I knocked on the door. To my surprise, Brandon opened almost immediately. He had red eyes, a tired face. We are almost done packing, he said quietly, without really looking at me. I nodded and went in. The apartment was a mess. Boxes, bags, clothes everywhere. Kayla was in the bedroom putting things into a suitcase without looking at me. She moved as if I were air. Where are you guys going to go? I asked, and it even annoyed me that a little bit of concern slipped out. Brandon shrugged. My parents already told us they will take us in. We are going to stay with them while we figure things out. I felt a twinge of guilt, but I quickly shut it down. That consequence was not mine, it was theirs. We did not talk much. I waited near the entrance while they finished. Kayla did not speak to me a single time. When they were finally ready, she came out with the suitcase, walked past me, and threw the keys on the floor at my feet without saying anything. Kayla, Brandon said as if wanting her to behave, but his voice faded out. She was already walking down the stairs. Brandon stayed a second longer. Sorry about the vase, he said, and for the lock. It was Kayla's idea, but I let it happen. I stared at him. You always let things happen, Brandon. That is your problem. He nodded sadly and picked up his last bag. He left. I was left alone. I closed the door and for the first time in weeks I breathed. But the calm lasted little. I looked around and felt disgusted. There were stains on the living room carpet, black marks on the walls, and the bathroom. The bathroom had a layer of grime that turned my stomach. In the kitchen, the sink was full of dirty dishes and a weird smell was coming from the fridge. I opened it and saw a container with something that did not even look like food anymore. Right then the locksmith arrived. He changed the locks, and while he was at it, I asked him to install a more secure deadbolt. I paid him extra because I did not want surprises anymore. That day I started cleaning. I filled bag after bag of trash with what they left behind. It took me 3 days to leave it presentable. For the bathroom and the kitchen, I had to hire a deep cleaning service, and I ended up changing the living room carpet because it could not be saved anymore. When I did the math, it made me angry again. Between the locksmith, the deep cleaning, and the carpet, it cost me nearly $2,000. And the worst part is that, of course, they never paid me for the ceramic vase. When it finally looked good, I put it up for rent. I took decent pictures, wrote a clear description, and set a fair price that would help me with the mortgage and leave something for maintenance. I got several applications in a few days. I did not just go with the first feeling this time. I checked references, asked for proof of income, and yes, I checked their credit report. In the end, I rented it to a young doctor, Dr. Caroline, who was going to start her residency at a major hospital. She had a fixed income, a good history, and to top it off, she did not bring pets. We signed a properly made contract with a deposit, clear dates, and everything. And the payment would be by electronic bank transfer every month without excuses. The day she moved in, I handed her the keys with a weird sense of accomplishment. That was the right thing. An agreement between adults, with no AITA's family getting in the way. I drove back to my house feeling lighter. The rent was going to help me exactly as I had planned before Brandon showed up to mess everything up. The following weeks were calm. I joined yoga classes, focused on work, went out a couple of times with new people with no drama. I went back to enjoying my space and my boundaries. My parents stopped calling. Occasionally they would send messages like "stop being stubborn" or "make peace with your brother." I deleted them without replying. 1 month after Brandon and Kayla left, I got a message from my mom that stopped me in my tracks. "Nicole, I know you are still angry, but I need to talk to you. It is important. Please call me." The tone was different, less bossy, more tired. I hesitated, but I called her. "What happened, Mom?" I heard a long sigh. "Nicole, I owe you an apology." Her voice broke a little. "Kayla, she is not how we thought." I leaned back on the couch without saying anything. "She took over the guest room as if it were her suite," my mom continued. "She leaves her things everywhere, uses up all the hot water, and if we ask her to clean up, she gets mad." "You do not say," I blurted out dryly. "Sounds familiar." "She gave us rules," my mom said. And now she did sound frustrated. "She seriously told your dad that he can no longer watch TV after 9 because the noise bothers her. And the other day she invited people over for dinner without asking me." She paused, as if swallowing her pride. "Your dad and I already talked to Brandon," she added. "We finally told him that things cannot stay like this, but the truth is we do not know how to handle it anymore." I got a weird knot in my stomach. Part of me felt satisfaction. I will not deny it. Another part felt sad because this was exactly what I tried to explain to them. "It must be tough," I said without emotion. "I finally understand what you were going through," my mom admitted. "Can you talk to Brandon? To see if you can convince him that he and Kayla should look for their own place. Your dad and I just cannot anymore." I let out a short, joyless laugh. "Seriously, are you asking me that? For me to fix the problem for you after you turned against me? Nicole, please," she begged. "We made a mistake." "Yes," I said. "You made a mistake, and it was not a small one." I took a deep breath. "You accused me of being bitter. You told me I was exaggerating. You ignored everything I told you. You let Brandon do whatever he wanted his whole life, and now it clicked for you because it happened in your house." My mom stayed silent. Then she asked, almost like a lost little girl, "So what do we do?" "You guys have to resolve that," I answered. "Just like my apartment was my problem. Remember? Well, this is your problem, not mine." There was no sound on the other end for a few seconds. "So, you are not going to speak to us anymore?" My mom said quietly. "You will not even come over on Saturday to eat?" I stared at the wall. I wanted to hold on to the anger so it would hurt them the way it hurt me. But I also knew that if they really wanted to change something, this was the moment, not for me to fix their lives but to set new boundaries. "I will go," I finally said, "but I will go to talk. Just to be clear, I am not going to fix this for you." "I understand," my mom replied. "We love you, Nicole." I hung up and sat there processing. There was a weird justice in all of this. My parents were tasting exactly what I went through and now they were actually seeing it. In the following days, I thought about what I was going to say at that dinner, not to save Brandon, nor to negotiate for Kayla, nor to go back to how things were before, but to make clear how my relationship with them was going to be from now on. I felt no obligation toward Brandon and Kayla. My brother made his decisions and now it was his turn to live with them. If this experience finally made him mature and take responsibility, great. If not, that is fine too. Meanwhile, Dr. Caroline paid her rent on time that month. The money went straight to my mortgage as it was supposed to. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was moving forward in my life, on my own terms, without having to apologize for taking care of what is mine. Comment. This story really made me reflect on my own life. I believe setting clear boundaries is one of the most important acts of self-respect. It's okay to say no when something doesn't feel right, even to the people we love. True kindness has limits and should never come at the expense of our own peace. Taking responsibility for our well-being helps us grow stronger. Sometimes the most loving thing we can do is choose what brings us calm. I hope this encourages you to look at the boundaries in your relationships. You deserve to feel safe and respected in your own space. Healing often begins when we stop carrying guilt that isn't ours. Remember that choosing your peace is not selfish. It's necessary. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.